And we are live. Super excited to have Jesse here. Jesse Trevino, an amazing homegrown Chicago realtor, Ironman. And you know what? I'm sorry. I got to introduce myself because I've been forgetting to do that. I'm JT O'Connor. I'm a loan officer. And it is my pleasure to be here with Jesse.
Thanks, JT.
Among other amazing things that Jesse's done in just first of all, he's worked in a variety of industries before coming to real estate, including doing like fundraising with big name investors. And since getting into real estate, he has gone from, in his less than 3 years, 0 to about 11, over 10 million in volume, lightning quick. So I'll turn it over to Jesse. Can you give us a breakdown? How did you get into real estate? How did you make that make that growth so quick? And
yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, first of all, thanks for having me on. I've been excited, looking forward to this for a couple of weeks.
My pleasure.
So I'm glad you got this platform out there for other agents to jump on. I'm born and bred in the city and spent my first part of my career, first 10 years doing marketing, specifically sports marketing for Gatorade, which is a brand of Quaker Oats. If you guys are Quaker Oats fans for breakfast items, it's a local headquarters in Chicago. I loved working there. I learned a ton. And then I just felt the need to kind of transition from like that skill set to like growing stock dollars for the company to doing good in the community. So I switched it over to nonprofit fundraising or development work. And that's what you were sort of alluding to. I spent some time at the University of Chicago and then jumped over to the public radio station WBEZ doing the same kind of work, fundraising, raising money for programs, institutions that are community focused. That whole time in that second part of my career, and again, being born and raised in the city, I have this love affair with like the neighborhoods, all 77 of them in the city. I'm always like curious about how people end up in certain neighborhoods, like historically or even today. Why do people choose the near West Side versus Lincoln Park versus Hyde Park? And so becoming an agent felt like a perfect progression for me, taking skill sets that I learned in marketing, a lot of the community stuff that I learned during fundraising. And since then, so I started as an agent. I got my license in 2016. And you mentioned the first 3 years of my career were like, those are tough years. Like, so if there's agents out there thinking about becoming an agent, like what they don't teach you in the licensing course is that you need startup cash. You need to just focus daily 24/7. What you do today will pay your bills 90 days, 4 months later. And it's a sort of like a long game. It's very small, tiny moves that get you to where you want to be. So, I'll use real dollars just to translate that. Year one was like $52K in commissions, which I thought was awesome. A lot of ramen noodle night stat, that first year. I actually drove Uber as a part-time job during that just to kind of sustain myself. Funny side story, my first buyer I met, he was a fare in my Uber. Like I picked him up, he was going home from work. He had just moved from Philly. I'll never forget the guy. We chatted, we were stuck in traffic. It was like a Cubs game going on and he was going from downtown, literally the Wrigley where he lives. Uh-huh. He was renting a place in a high rise. And so we were stuck in traffic for an hour. We hit it off. I gave him my card. I'm like, hey, this is super random, but like, I'm also an agent. I know the city really well. If you're interested, no pressure. And he called me the next morning. Long story short for that, I showed him like 30 homes in Portage Park, Jefferson Park area. He was very particular, but we got him a deal. And so my first closing was like 3 months after I got my license.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so 52K year one, about 75 year two, and then it jumped up, to the $10 million range, 10 million in sales. So it went fast, and it was all about like listening to my mentors, like put in the work in year one, it'll pay off year 2 and 3. And again, it's that marathon pace where like 1 mile at a time, you're clicking away.
Right.
That's how I got to where I'm at year 3. And since then I've been in the business since 2016 now. And I've maintained 10 plus million in sales every year.
Can you sum up quickly what your mentors were telling you? Like what was kind of the general advice or anything that stuck out to you?
Yeah, just consistency and like discipline. And it's hard, those are like two big words and what does that mean, but it literally is like every day. I mean, this is a real life example. I was telling my assistant, my teammate Mo, who's with us today, thanks for coming, that it's the grind, you know, and you see a lot of posts and people wearing t-shirts that say hustle and grind, but it really is that. You don't need to wear the shirt that says it. You have to just do it. And it's winter time is coming, right? It's getting chilly out. It's over almost November. All I want to do is take a break. All I want to do is like take a whole weekend off. But I know, and I hear these mentors saying, you can rest, but also continue pushing, because what you're doing today will set you up for like December, January, February closings, when it's the slowest time, you know, traditionally in the real estate market. So it's really is that. It's do a little every day to excel your business, whether it's, you know, listen to a podcast, get out and check out some brokers opens. I know showings have slowed down quite a bit, like across the city, but broker opens are still happening. You can host open houses. Like there's things you can do that don't suck a lot of your energy. So you can feel like, hey, maybe I take a half a day off, but the first half of the day, I focus on my business.
Yeah. So one thing I wanted to ask you, you've got, as we talked about, a bit of a unique background doing marketing for, you know, big companies and you know, University of Chicago, that's a multi-billion-dollar organization. Were there any lessons that you took away from these large, you know, behemoth? There must have been a significant amount of, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I would think that there was some overlap in the objectives that you were trying to accomplish there and the objectives that you're accomplishing now in real estate. Are there any lessons that you took from those experiences?
Yeah, I mean, working backwards, the development work, the community-based work was really special. When I worked at the University of Chicago and at WBEZ, I work with major gift fundraising, which means, you know, and every institution is different. They define a dollar amount for that, but those are philanthropic people. Everybody, I think, can be philanthropic, but like the definition is like, you know, in terms of dollars, they're multi-million-dollar gifts, $10 million, $50 million, $100 million gifts at the University of Chicago. Right. They're intense and they take time. So you can't just. I'm sorry to cut you off. I'm just reminded of I'm a U Chicago grad and I get my telephone phone call and I every year give my $5. I worked at the telefund. So anyway, aside, I didn't mean to cut you off. But that's important too, right? Because I used to help do that. Like those alumni gifts, that's probably what you're getting. Yeah. Those sustain. Like, you know, it's kind of reminded of like when President Obama ran for office, like his average gift was like $32 or some crazy dollar amount. But it is that. It's a lot of small little gifts that end up making a big difference. And then these big $10 million, $50 million gifts, they're transformative. They could just throw lighter fluid on a fire and then you can create any program. You can, right, you know, try to find a cure for cancer or the research to help it. Right. So all of it's important. So my lesson from that is like, it is baby steps. Like you can't ignore, like for me in real estate, I can't ignore a renter or somebody because they can only afford $100,000 house. I shouldn't. Like ethically, I should want to help that person anyway. They all add up, whether it's a $100,000 condo or $1 million house or a $5 million house. It's all people focused. And so I can take a lesson from it. I can do the work. The commissions are a byproduct. You know, the commissions are great. Like if you're thinking about real estate, if you put in the effort, yeah, it's transformative. But at the end of the day, people are trusting you into their circle, their family, and it's a high stress time. So there's not only like this duty, a sense of duty tied to it, but like I have to help them. Like if I don't help them, I might be the only guy like perfect to get them from A to Z in this journey. So it's about like just being empathetic, I think, and being grateful for like that $1,500 renter. I just helped them and I made a difference in their lives. Like it's one less thing they have to worry about. And if I did my job well, I think they'll call me in the future when they're ready to purchase.
Sure. So you talked about like consistency and discipline. What are the things that you do every day that if you know you do them, you're going to have, you know, a growing business?
That's a tough one. Like, and it's business planning season time right now. And so I'm looking at my teammate Mo, like we're actually meeting on Monday to, you know, write out or brainstorm the ideas for 2023, 3-year plan and moving forward. Like it is like not one thing comes to mind, but like it is that daily commitment to better myself, whether it's a behavior or just a simple attitude. Like I mentioned the attitude of gratitude earlier, like little practices that change my mindset and my energy to say, you know what, like, okay, I may not have the resources for this, but I could be resourceful. And what does that mean? So as long as I'm switching the questions around, like, oh my God, I have to go do this showing, I don't want to like, I get to, like, that's awesome. Like my mind changes quickly and the energy follows and it projects with the client and the customer. So there's a lot of things that need to get done. And like, my brain is clogged up because of the brainstorming sessions we got coming up, and it's going to be awesome. But I would say that like the daily thing is just sort of checking in with myself mentally and making sure I'm projecting what I need for me, because what I put out there is people are going to receive it, and I think it's going to come back to me.
Yeah. Give us a sneak peek. Dive into it a little bit. Like, what are some things on your mind for this brainstorming session? Like, where do you see opportunities for growth, and you know, where do you I mean, I guess like what I'm always thinking about is where can I get the most bang for my buck for my time?
Right.
You know, there's only so many hours in a day.
Right.
There's a lot of things I could be doing that, you know, might help grow my business. One thing is this podcast. I don't know. Will it help grow my business? I'm not sure. We're going to find out.
If anything, it's good therapy. Like two guys get to talk about what drives us crazy, and it happens to be our bread and butter that we make a living on.
That's true.
Yeah. So I listen to a lot of Tom Ferry podcasts. Cool. I'm going to one of his sessions in a couple of months too. Nice. About sales and marketing. But a lot of it, I mean, jumping into the brainstorm is like branding, and like Tom Ferry mentions, like, you know, having a digital brand. What is it? When people are Googling for an agent, are they finding you? So Mo and I do a pretty good job of like, not just like building our referral business through our clients. Like I think we're injected into their lives enough that they remember to call us. If they don't, that's technically my fault. I wasn't top of mind, right? But like, where do we get the other deals? I do enjoy using Instagram, for example, and consuming TikTok like everybody else nowadays. So there's opportunities there, and how do we leverage it? So specifically like that, like we're going to double down. I want to double down on Instagram, and I want to do the same thing for TikTok. I think there's not missed opportunities that we haven't explored. Is just, you know, you set a plan earlier in the year and you get caught in it. And then the work itself is busy, but like checking in with the plan and then reassessing. I'm really excited about Monday because I think it's going to be great. YouTube is another one that I think we're gonna be thinking about too.
For my own like 2 cents on this, I'm working out the same problems, and you know, a cool thing about this stuff is, from my perspective, there's a lot of overlap, right? Like this video will be a podcast. It'll be a YouTube video, God willing. And then it will also it could theoretically be TikToks, and it could be Instagram Reels, and it could go on Facebook too. And you know, certainly any TikTok is an Instagram piece of media, and also a Facebook piece of media, and also a YouTube, you know, they have their own TikTok version. So it's like figuring out how to take, you know, figuring out how to take one thing and make it apply
you make it evergreen.
Right.
So you take one piece, whether it's audio or video or both, and then it could live everywhere.
Right.
One thing I didn't mention earlier was about next year in the brainstorming is Google. So there's a lot that I think we can do with it. My teammate Mo is really analytical when it comes to that background. She's got an MBA in marketing. And so awesome. I'm excited about that. But yeah, I mean, Google, I use Google all the time. And so why wouldn't another like customer that can become a client do the same? Like the analytics are out there to show that we should be putting effort towards it. And going back to your comment, like Monday, like, so we're getting the routine of like, we try to tape reels, and we you know, they're not all home runs or everything, but like we're getting a routine of like booking a Monday for 2 hours, and then you knock out 3 or 4 reels, and now you've got inventory, and then you can post it when you're ready for it. So those are some of the things we're gonna like really not even double down, maybe triple down in 2023.
Love it. And also wanted to say a quick comment, like our last guest, Sang Han, great guy. Also a big content guy. And he was talking about how he uses Google in his leverages, basically a big piece of his content strategy is leveraging Google because, and in the following way, he optimizes the titles of his content, blog posts, video, that kind of thing for people searching. So he'll catch, and he's very specific to the Korean community, but he'll catch people, oftentimes Korean people moving to Chicago, Googling about it, and his content is made for, is set up to catch those people Googling. And so I don't know, that made me think of that.
No, we're excited about it. Like there's a lot, like Mo just mentioned that we were just chatting about, like, what's your why? Like, remembering why I got into the business and why am I different from everybody else? Like, I forget the stat, but I think there's 13 or 15,000 people with a real estate license in the city. 15,000. There's a lot of agents. Like, what makes me different, and how am I authentic, and am I being true to myself? Like, so what's my why? And so remembering why I got into the business, why I'm doing it today, and why I want to continue doing it, tying that to the content that we tape and record, I think it's going to be a game changer for us.
Can you go into it a little bit? Like, what is your why? How are you branding yourself, or how do you think about that?
Yeah. I mean, so Mo's been awesome with so we have a weekly e-blast that we send out to our clients. It's a couple thousand emails or whatever.
Okay.
And so, for example, before we connected together and she started working on my team, I did everything, just like every other agent, right? If you don't have the resources, you tend to do everything, and it's not all good product. Like, it's consistent. I was getting e-blasts out almost weekly, but now it's weekly, and now it's gone from just sold and for sale, or here's an open house, to value added content.
Right.
So if it's an event that I'm going to, and I can turn that from myself and just say, hey, the Day of the Dead festivities are this weekend, go check it out at Pilsen. It's one of my favorite holidays. If you've got plans or you don't, maybe it's something you want to check out. So it becomes a lot of that, turning the mirror on myself to people that are going to consume it, and where's the value. So some of the why includes that whole focusing on communities and people. My fundraising career was a game changer for me because I enjoyed my corporate days, and it was great. And there's a lot of good reasons and so not to stay there. But feeling there's a sense of reward in the kind of work I was doing as a nonprofit fundraiser was really eye-opening and really satisfying for me. I get the same reward in this job. It's different. It's very entrepreneurial. It's a very lonely sport, right? On your side too, it's you have to get the work done. But my why is really tied to am I making somebody's life better? Can I help them make this crazy transition? And I'm going through it too, because I just went from a condo to a 2-unit building that needs work in the inner city to, just on the outskirts of Chicago that it's stressful. I'm still living in boxes, they're in the basement and everything, right? But that's stressful for families, but I can create that help for them, and I think they see the authenticity when I partner with them. I do a good job. Again, the skill set is something that for me comes natural, but it's textbook. You could learn it. This is why they have the licensing courses, and you have mentors. You could learn a skill, but remembering what made that special for you, I think that translates for my clients.
Totally. Okay, a couple things I want to ask about. First of all, you have clearly a really effective one strategy you do and execute on in a way that I think would be enviable to a lot of other realtors out there is your email newsletter. You send one out every week. People clearly get a lot of value out of it. Can you talk about dig into it a little bit? Maybe what are you seeing as a return from it? How do you actually do it? What tools do you use to do it?
For sure.
What kind of content do you put in there?
Yeah. So in terms of housekeeping, we use Salesforce as my CRM.
Okay.
That's where we dump names, contact info, track transactions. You know, every brokerage. I work for Century 21. Everybody's got like their internal like housekeeping thing like that.
But I use Salesforce too.
Yeah, and I used to use Salesforce in my fundraising days, so there was a natural progression for me to use it here. But we use ActiveCampaign to as my e-blast system.
Cool.
So
Great
there's
service.
emails and names that live in there, and setting up a weekly e-blast, like after you get a template or two that you love, it's kind of like you're just literally changing out data and pictures. You're replacing a photo or whatever, a title. But more importantly, so two things, like doing it consistently, like it's a game changer. Like you can see the slow progression. And once I had Mo start adding, reluctantly, she was pushing me to do like, we got to test out some different things that create value. And she was right. Like early in the year, I went from like, 3 to 7% open rate to like high teens, a low 22%. And we're getting more people responding to things like that. I think that is a game changer, like remembering not only to do it consistently with discipline, but like adding the value in it, complete game changer.
So what kind of value do you add?
So it's all about like, do you want a CMA? Like, I know it sounds like really, very like cookie cutter, but if somebody's lived in their place for 2-3 years and they bought during COVID or just pre-COVID, they might have like left some concessions on the table. So are they still happy in their house? Like perhaps, so it's an opportunity to reach out and just ask them that. Or say, hey, you've been in your place 2-3 years. Not sure if you're thinking about like, updating your kitchen, like a home equity line of credit, maybe refinancing. This is before the rates went up and everything. Or maybe you're thinking about selling next spring. If you are, here's a quick CMA. Today, if you sold your house, you can get, blah, 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 X dollars for it. And so they see that. And I mean, we literally just sent this out maybe, so this same example about 2-3 weeks ago. And easily three or four clients that I can think of said, oh, that's cool. You know what? I have questions on this.
Amazing.
Like no one's raised their hand to say I'm ready to sell, but like that alone, and those were clients that I got places for. And so they're like, wow, this is really cool, Jesse. I didn't know that. Let me think about that. I may borrow some money to redo my kitchen. So it's little things like that too, that I think for us have been a game changer in terms of value.
That's awesome.
And it's not like asking them for deals and business. It's more like I should be doing that. I should be, the transaction doesn't end at the closing table. It continues on, and they need my help. Like they're struggling out there, and they don't know it until you get a piece of data like this and say, oh, they can turn to their partner and say, oh my God, we could put in that addition in the attic now. Like I had no idea our place was worth X. So I think it's a good thing.
Right. So is the newsletter very focused on real estate stuff, or so do you venture outside of that? Yeah,
absolutely. So we try to do a little bit of both. Like there's been some e-blasts where there's no real estate, there's no sales, or we rarely do just solds. It's more like notices about listings coming or open house. Like I'll sneak in an open house thing, but our new like go-to is adding the value at the beginning. Whether it's a weekend thing, Chicago Marathon was recent, so we posted that, like, hey, heads up, street closures from like 8 a.m. to 2. Like, by the way, go check it out. I've done a few races. It was cool to see spectators. I'm going to spectate this year. Come check it out. I'll be in Pilsen if you want to come say hello. Like things like that. Like it becomes almost like, I'm embedded in the community. I'm not selling things all the time. And the e-blast should be like sort of value focus, and so that alone, like the last couple of ones, I don't remember the stats, but they've been pretty good for us.
So what percentage of the time is it pure like cool things happening in Chicago versus like here's like a real estate tip? Like is it always both? Is it kind of sometimes one, sometimes the other?
Yeah, it's about 50-50. Okay. It all depends on the season. Like, the marathon thing, I didn't include anything. It was just straight marathon.
Yeah.
I think every week, so we try to get this out at the end of the week, Thursdays and Fridays or whatever. Excuse me. So we think about topics Monday and Tuesday. And the first thing that comes to mind is like, what's going on in the city, or did I do anything fun? For example, like clocks are going to go back like in 2 weeks. Like, is there something seasonal of value that I can share with a homeowner about changing out filters or batteries on their carbon monoxide detectors, or what do you do with all these leaves that are just dropped, like anything fun that I can come up with. So things like that. So we try to make it like appropriate for like the season. And then, oh, by the way, I am hosting an open house. Let's put that at the bottom of the e-blast.
Right.
So it's a little bit of both.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, the way that I've been, in the coaching programs that I've subscribed to, which I respect, they're very much like, and you kill it with this, so I'm taking notes, but like they take a similar approach, which is like, hey, the content doesn't need to be about real estate. People are most of the time going about their daily lives. They're not thinking about real estate. Like they're thinking about the day of they're thinking about, what am I going to do this weekend?
Yeah. If the weather's going to be nice, like great. Like, and so the last e-blast we just sent out was the Day of the Dead events happening tomorrow. And
right.
It is super cool. Like it's in Pilsen. It's at the Museum of National Mexican Fine Art. It's the only national Mexican Fine Art Museum in the country, if you didn't know that.
I've been there. It's a great spot.
It's really cool. Yeah. And you don't have to get dressed up. Just like grab a coffee or a latte and walk around and just check out all the sites and the scenes. It'll be fun.
Shout out Carnitas Uruapan. I don't know if you've been there. Not affiliated with this podcast, but it's in my fantasy.
Well, they're going to send us some food now. So.
Oh, I hope so. That would be my dream come true. I'll know I made it if I get free carnitas from Carnitas Uruapan. Great spot. Yeah. Right around the corner from that museum. So another here's a question for you too. So you've started to grow a team. Can you talk about like your kind of strategy with that? Like, how did you think about like, this is what I'm going to start to outsource, or like, how have you used your team to your advantage? What are the kind of things that you've seen that have like most improved your business and your life from doing that?
Yeah, again, it's like my mentors, like my manager broker Jim is a super really good guy. Like he's very empowering and supportive. Again, the Tom Ferrys of the world, like I'll just listen to those podcasts, and I remember them saying like, you want to take your business to the next level and or free up some time on your side so that you could have a life. You got to get an assistant. You have to add a team member, whether it's like a transaction coordinator, a marketing person, or just an admin, like an assistant. You got to start resourcing this thing out. Virtual assistant is something you hear about a lot. So for me, this is the first year that I took on Mo or anybody full time. Like I just said, you know what? I didn't know if I had the resources for it, but let's just get resourceful. We could figure out a structure for like, how do I pay someone to do X? And it has been a game changer. Like I've grown my business. This year will end somewhere around 14 million. So it's at least 2 to 3 million more than my average like production over the last couple of years. So I'm super happy about it. Like I couldn't have done it without Mo's help. And I also feel like I'm not pulling my hair out. We're both like have this, anxious energy, like that entrepreneur, like I can't take a day off. I got to pay bills. And now I have a team member to also support. And that's a healthy energy. So for me, it was just like, I got to do it. And like, there's always like this anxiety and fear about like, oh my God, like, what do I do? And can I afford it? You can make it work with the right person. Everything will work out. And more importantly, like, the year's not even over and we're doing awesome like that. Like for me, I'm super thrilled about this past year.
Awesome. Okay. Let's hop into the lightning round questions.
All right.
And you know what? I'm going to add officially a new lightning round question I want to ask every single time. I've been asking it. It's not been on the official list. Everybody's been harping that. No, everybody out there can't wait for the lightning round. So my first lightning round question is, what is something that if you were to go back in time to day one, you would be doing every day that you weren't doing then that you know now? Wow. Okay. You could tell that
Yeah.
I didn't write that one down.
But I know exactly what you said. Going out to check to see properties. So as a new agent, you don't have a lot to do, like, because you don't have clients. And regardless of what prospecting method you're using, whether it's cold calling or hitting your sphere or whatever it is, social media, you have to go look at property. You got to start, putting into place visually with these properties what you learned in class. And I didn't do a lot of that. you feel weird about it. Like when you go to a broker's open, like, do they know I'm new? Like, do I look the part? Like, there's this nervous like energy as a rookie, like, cause you feel green. But like the more properties you see, the more comfortable you get with not only like the pitches, plus you get to see other agents and how they describe a kitchen or what type of granite is that. You don't know that until you get in it. So seeing properties, like there's no reason why you can't see a handful of properties daily. There's always brokers opens. There's always a bunch of open houses on the weekend. Like even this, I track open houses. Like there's 2,900 to 3,000 every weekend. Like you can go see a lot of properties without clients. And now you've seen it, and now you're learning about what does a 2-bedroom go for in River North, or what's a home go for in like Edgewater. You know that, and when you start picking up clients, you're gonna sound way more like an expert than you really are. So that would be the first thing, because I didn't spend a lot of time those first couple of months doing that, but when I started doing it, it was a game changer.
Got it. Cool. What purchase of $200 or less has most positively impacted your business?
I do remember this. So, and this is a lot from my like fundraising days, and really more like what I like to get in the mail is when I get a note card that's like handwritten. And so I think about stationery and just taking a moment to send a thank you to a client, or a thank you letter with like a coffee, gift card to a client that referred me to somebody. Like those are game changers. People will call me and say, "Oh, I got your," it'll be months. Like, "Oh my God, thanks for checking in. By the way, I got that handwritten letter. Man, no one drops handwritten letters anymore. That's awesome."
Yeah.
So just remembering to do that, just take a pause. And plus for me, it feels good. Like I took a moment of my day. I sat at my desk and I wrote 5 thank you letters, and I think it goes a long way.
I find like when I write a thank you note, I can be a little bit more like from the heart than I can in a text or an email. Like something that sounds like a little bit like, ooh, like in an email or a text can be like on a handwritten.
Yeah. And the fine art of like just writing something with a pen and a piece of paper, it's getting lost because everything's 2 thumbs on your text message, right? Or on your laptop. But I like the quietness of doing it.
Is there a particular like stationery brand or, anything like that comes to mind?
Not really. Yeah. I mean, not to plug them, but like moo.com, MOO.com. Sure. They have a lot of fun like cardstocks. And so you could do whatever you want with them. You can get nicer ones. You can put, custom logos. I like it because I already have an account there. And so it's easier just to order supplies.
Cool. Mm-hmm. What is the business or real estate book that you've gifted the most times?
So I don't think it's like a business book, but so we try to do a good job with like sending thank you gifts to clients, closing gifts. And we try, obviously there's sometimes bottles of champagnes or whatever. We try to cater it to the client. Are they drinkers? Maybe they're not. Do they prefer tequila over this? Are they? So there is like, I do like local books, like history books, architecture books. So if somebody bought a place in Hyde Park, I'll try to find a book that's like really Hyde Park, history driven. There's a local poet, kind of artist. His name is Kevin Koval. He's got a really fun book. It's called The People's History of Chicago, I think it's called. Check it out on Amazon. It's like 80 pages or so, but they're short story poems from an inner city perspective. Like, having a bodega on the corner of Wicker Park and now it's no longer there. Like, what does that mean? So there's stories behind it. So he tells stories from like the first settler to like present day, and it's cool. So you see a timeline of like Chicago from like, Chicago Fire to today, but it's written in a really fun way. So I would say I'd probably gifted that book way more often than anything else.
That's awesome. Yeah. I have to check that out. Never heard of that.
Yeah. Kevin Koval. Shout out to Kevin Koval.
What is an unusual habit or an absurd thing that you love?
I mean, it's not real estate related, or maybe it is. Like I do like endurance races, so I like putting my body through a level of pain, if you will.
Jesse's an Ironmaner.
So yeah, and to clarify, half Ironman, because I don't want. I do have friends that do full Ironman races, and that's twice as much. So I'm not claiming that, but like I've done, I think 4 70.3 races, a handful of like Olympic triathlons, and a bunch of Chicago marathons.
Lay out the numbers for us.
Yeah, so a half Ironman, and Mo is she's no longer a rookie. So I had her and another buddy of mine at work, Nathan. Last year, it was their first time doing it. We did the Michigan half Ironman race, 70.3.
Did you do it too? Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. She crushed it. So it was a good race for everybody. So the breakdown really quickly, the swim is 1.2 miles if you swim in a straight line. There's another story behind that.
I remember.
You get out, you jog to your bicycle, and you cycle 56 miles. You get off, put on your running shoes, and you do a half marathon, so 13.1. So it's a lot. It's 70.3 total miles.
How many, like roughly speaking, how many hours of suffering is that?
Ooh, I mean, if you're, a weekend guy like myself, it's 6. Like, yeah. I think I don't remember if I was chasing a 6-hour time or a 7 or whatever, but
that's
like,
awesome.
Yeah, I mean, it's fun. So I guess, the question was like, what's absurd behavior? Like,
that's a good one.
It is like, but there's, and I don't know if I was telling my teammate this is, we exercise our minds daily. Like we push our brains to the limit with like, just how do I handle this situation? I got to call my seller. What do I tell him? So I feel like I push my mind to expand and every day. Like, so I feel like I should be doing that to my body. And so to the extent that I'll never do a full Ironman, because I just don't think that I don't want to do that. I don't think I'll get a sense of victory from it. But the endurance training is something that is in my DNA.
Love it. In the last 5 years, what new belief, behavior, or habit has most improved your life?
Definitely, and I mentioned this before, like having an attitude of gratitude, like just remembering that you have to have a sense of empathy. Like everybody's going through something in their lives and you don't know what it is. Like what you got going today, JT, and you got a big smile on your face and you've got good energy. I mean, there's stuff going on in your life. There's stuff going on in my life. Pausing to remember that everybody's experiencing something is a game changer for me. Like, I try not to take things personal, like, especially in the business setting, like, cause it isn't. Like, It's just like, I'm getting yelled at by a client because they're having a bad day of some sort, and that's okay. Like, my job is to get through that and make their day better. And so like the attitude of gratitude for me, like again, changes my mindset, changes my energy and how I project. For me, it's given me a whole lot of peace, like within, and going out with just a clearer head and nothing heavy weighing on you. For me, it makes me a better agent.
Yeah, totally. It's necessary. Yeah. I struggle with, I try to accomplish the same things. Right. Sometimes it's harder. Some days it's harder than others.
And it's a work in progress for everybody. Yeah. Like, I could easily say attitude of gratitude, but like, am I practicing that daily? Like, it's remembering to do it and checking yourself when you don't.
Totally. How has a failure or apparent failure set you up for later success? Do you have a favorite failure?
I get, as agents, we get fired quite often. And you don't see that in social media because everybody's posting the glamorous life and the cars and the closings and, my life is wonderful. Like, it's a facade. Like, we get fired and it's our fault. Like, sometimes there's a fit thing that's not right for everybody, like between an agent and a client and vice versa. But at the end of the day, like, everything is a teachable moment. My victories I enjoy, but I almost embrace the failures more so. Like, what happened? What? How could I change that? And what's my teachable moment? Like, switch it around. Like, it's it wasn't personal, but something was a disconnect. I need to pause and think about that. And if you take like your teachable moments from your victories, because everybody does, or sometimes it's easy to, when the scoreboard is like you're winning, you're like, all right, business as usual, keep going. But like, pause. Like, why was my client upset about this? Like, did I not communicate enough? Did I not communicate the right way. Like, it's all a teachable moment. Pausing almost daily to say, how did I do with that client today? Or what did I miss? Like, I think you learn from that and you keep moving forward. You can't live in the past about it. And yeah, it hurts, when you lose a listing or a buyer decides to go with another agent, but pause and figure out why that happened and then take a lesson and move forward with it.
Right. What are bad recommendations you hear in real estate or business?
I guess I made a comment earlier about what they don't teach you in the licensing course is that it's hard work. It's harder than anything I've ever done. Excuse me. And I've had some pretty challenging careers, I want to say, but setting yourself up for success from day one means if you want to become an agent or work in, the mortgage industry, it's 100% commission, right? Or 90%, depends on where you go, but it's you got to go do the work to get it done.
Blessing and a curse.
Yeah, it is, right? It's
I
awesome.
wouldn't have it any other way.
Right. It's an energy that you have to embrace. But if you don't have the resources up front, get resourceful about it. There is investments, on the agent side. If you're new and you're thinking about like getting a license, like there's carrying costs, like to get your license, to pass the test. You should take a course for that. That costs money. When you pass the test, you got to go get sponsored at a brokerage, and keeping your MLS fees up to date. It's like $1,500 or something like that. So there's money involved. Like, can you sustain that for the first few months while you get your business going? So I don't think there's enough of that out there. Like, I wouldn't call it bad advice. It's just not promoted. Like, you have to seek that out. It's easy to go find courses or find reasons to become an agent or to get into this sort of industry, but there's not enough. Or they just don't promote it, or maybe I didn't see it, or I didn't bother looking for it. Like, that's important. So I would pause and say, all right, I'm going to make this transition. Do I keep my day job? Do I drive Uber? Do I, do something on the side to sustain? Think about that before you jump in.
Love it. And last thing, what is the number one thing that if you do it every day, your business will grow?
I guess it's going back to that word consistency, like any prospecting method, any way to you
for you.
Yeah. For me, is just remembering to check in with my clients, especially in this market, right? So things are slowing down. Why are they slowing down? Like, the media has something different to say about it. If I have a discipline of checking in with for example, my sellers on my listings, if it used to be a weekly, maybe it's got to be 3 times a week now. Like, I have to give them peace of mind because they're hearing when they turn on the radio or the TV, things about the market and the economy. What they're not hearing is historically, we are in a different market and the circumstances are different. Yes, the rates are higher, but there's a reason it doesn't compare to the previous recession of 2008 or the crazy rates of back in the day, in the 80s and 70s when our parents and grandparents bought homes. So they need to hear that from me. If I'm not telling them that, they're going to hear what they want to hear, right? Or what's being blasted in their faces, and it's not always accurate. So for me, it's remembering, what do my sellers need from me? They need more data. I can't just tell them that we had a slow week or the market's just slow because it's the holiday season. Some of that is true, but what's the why? So I have to remember to do that daily.
Love it. Awesome. Well, this is a pleasure. Thank you so much, Jesse, for coming on the show.
Awesome, JT. Thank you, man.
I learned a ton. Anything you want to plug before we wrap things up? Or?
No, not plug, but I want to put you on the spot and get you to commit to a half Ironman next summer.
I'm in.
So
done.
So
I'm in.
Yeah, everybody out there who's listening to this, JT just committed to do a 70.3.
I'm in.
I'm putting him on the spot. I'll be out there cheering for you, man. I'm not doing another one next year, but I'll definitely hand you a water bottle on the way out.
I love the challenge, man. Thanks so much. I'm in.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This was awesome.
Awesome.